Well, good afternoon, everyone. Bill Rentschler in the 1011 Now streaming studio. It's Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock, and that means we have our regularly scheduled streaming segment Inside the Story with the Flatwater Free Press. Again, always a good time in the 1011 Now streaming studio when we talk with the Flatwater Free Press. Again, they're always putting out some spectacular content. Again, some really nice deep dive investigative pieces today. No different. Again, if you want to see the story that we're going to be talking about, again, it is available on the Flatwater Free Press's website, flatwaterfreepress.org. Also posted on the 1011now.com website as well. So we're going to bring in a new reporter today, someone who hasn't joined us yet before on the segment. I'm going to bring in Destiny Herbers with the with the Flatwater Free Press. Destiny, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing on this Friday?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing pretty well. It's a little stormy here, so if there's any flashes of lightning, that's
It is a little bit stormy out there. There are some storms out and about. I'm a meteorologist by trade, so again, I have my radar pulled up right here on the computer, so I will let you know if you need to go to the basement or anything like that. Destiny, you are both new to the Flatwater Free Press and new to the state. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, kind of how you came to be where you are right now?
Yeah, I just graduated from the University of Maryland, Philip Merrill College of Journalism, and I was a Howard Fellow there, and so I got the opportunity to extend my fellowship with the Roy Howard Fund, and they placed me for a post-grad fellowship here with the Flatwater Free Press, which has just been really awesome. I'm so fortunate to be able to work with them this year, and it's been really exciting.
Awesome. And so today's story, what we're talking about, again, a super interesting story. I had no idea this issue existed until we set up today's segment. And I'll go ahead and I'll pull up our kind of triple boxes here so everyone can kind of see what we're talking about. But the story is about Medicaid, low-income patients, and dental care here in the state of Nebraska. Can you kind of tell me, kind of a 40,000-foot view, what this story is about and kind of how you came to find out about this issue to come up with this piece?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even before I started, the Flatwater Free Press had been receiving some tips from patients out in the western part of the state that they were just completely unable to find any dentist who would take their Medicaid insurance. So when I got here, they were like, we think there's something here. Can you dive into that? And what I found out is that it is a really widespread and severe issue that was at a scope that we didn't really expect it to be. The baseline is Medicaid reimbursement fees for dentists are much lower in Nebraska than they are in most surrounding states, and also much, much lower than private insurances. So dentists aren't able to afford treating Medicaid patients.
And so for people who may not understand kind of what you just said, kind of a little bit myself included, can you kind of walk us through that process of, okay, you go see the dentist and you need a crown put in, Medicaid's supposed to cover it, but it sounds like the Medicaid program is only covering up to a certain percentage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you would go get like a crown procedure done, after that, the dentist is going to bill your insurance. And that's sort of a similar process if you have private insurance or Medicaid. And then they send that bill to Medicaid, and Medicaid says, okay, our reimbursement rate for that procedure is this amount of money. And in most cases, that reimbursement rate is less than 40% of the total cost of that care for the dentist who provided it. So they're operating at like a 60 to 70% loss when they're treating patients.
And that's real. Obviously, anyone who owns a business or has done anything like that knows you can't run a business when you're operating with losses like that. So, in your article, basically what we've seen is in 2017, you had 600 or so dentist office that took a Medicare patient. Last year, that number has nosedived. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those numbers?
Yeah, so it's been a pretty steady decline year over year since 2017, which was the sort of farthest back I got data from DHHS. And that data is the number of dentists who have received reimbursement for treating at least one Medicaid patient. So that's not necessarily dentists who have themselves listed as accepting new patients. That's just people who have actually treated a Medicaid patient. And it has just steadily dropped year over year especially you see it kind of plateaus around the pandemic and then drops even more severely around the time that Medicaid was expanded.
And yeah, this is one of the graphs included in your story again, which again you can find on Flatwater Free Press's website, flatwaterfreepress.org. You can also find the story in this chart on 1011now.com. Another one of the interesting pieces in this story is the map of the state of Nebraska that you guys included. And these, can you tell us what these little black dots are on this map for the state of Nebraska?
Each black dot is a dental provider, which might be an office or an individual dentist who has a practice that was listed as receiving a Medicaid reimbursement for the beginning of 2023. So that data goes through sort of the first 6 months of 2023. And as you can see, those dots are clustered around Lincoln and Omaha and then around the major highway. But there's just so many counties that have none at all.
And again, one of the first things you say in your story here, it really jumps out at you. There are 93 counties in Nebraska, 43 counties, again, most of those being in the western half, Sandhills area, Panhandle, have 0 dentists helping low-income Nebraskans or folks on Medicaid. Really astounding.
Yeah. I spoke to sort of one of the main characters of the story, John Morris, before I received this data from DHHS, and he lives in the bottom corner of Nebraska, and he had said that he wasn't able to find anyone within 200 miles who could help his wife. And so seeing that map then after I got the data was really validating, I think, for both of us, because we were like, there's no one.
Yeah, and again, one of the really good things that, and not just you, but again, all these stories we've done with the Flatwater Free Press, it can be really easy to take just the data and put the data out there, which makes for a compelling story. But when you add a personal angle to it as well, which is what you've done in the story, it really makes it really an interesting story and something that makes you kind of scratch your head and like wonder, why is this an issue? But Arlene Morris, again, you just mentioned her husband John is one of the first people you talk about, and again, they're in Stratton, which again is extreme southwest Nebraska, and it sounds like they can only get appointments right now in Lincoln or Omaha. So you're talking about driving from Stratton area down in Dundee County, which again is as far southwest as southwest goes in Nebraska. You're talking 5-6 hours on the road just to go to a dentist appointment.
And then hours of treatment on top of that. And Medicaid does provide transportation for those patients, but they do not cover overnight stays. So you would have to go all the way there and all the way back in one day.
And cover the cost of your own hotel, cover the cost. You're going to have to get food. You're going to have to get gas. And again, for people who are on Medicaid, you may already be low income as it is. So again, all these are issues, again, holding people back from getting the dental care that they really, really need. Another one of the people you spoke to in this story, see if I can find her name, is Allison McLeese Reintz. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. She, again, it's super interesting here. She went to sleep on December 23rd, 2020 with her jaw hurting. By morning, the side of her face had swelled like a balloon. She goes to the emergency room, and all of a sudden she has surgery, then removes all 32 of her teeth. And she had already had issues finding dental care, and now all of a sudden she has no teeth. Can you kind of tell us about her story?
Yeah, that story was just shocking and horrifying to hear in the interview. But it's also a perfect demonstration of the issue at hand, and that is when a patient can't get medical care and they have just one tooth that's bad and infected and is causing them pain, and they can't get into a dentist to have that tooth fixed. Then all this time passes, and suddenly the infection can spread through their jaw, and then we're looking at an emergency surgery, which Medicaid has to cover, and a hospital stay, and we're looking at dentures, and their life is just completely altered. And if they had just been able to see a dentist in the beginning, none of those costs would have happened. They wouldn't have lost so much. And that's a story that's happening all over Nebraska. People are losing a lot because they don't have access to dental care.
And one could make the argument, again, there's always, the argument that you are actually, to fix this issue, solve this issue, again, preventative care regular dentist visits save you from having these big surgeries, big issues down the line. So again, having access to that is going to, in the long run, hopefully save money, save taxpayer money, because this is Medicaid, from being an issue, right?
Yeah, it saves money. It saves those patients from having long-term issues that they have to keep seeing dentists about, and it also keeps them from like being prescribed opioids and having those sorts of problems.
And so, I mean, again, obviously, this is an issue. It's an issue that we hopefully can do something about. Again, we're doing our part here by trying to just raise some awareness. Can you kind of go into a little bit of you go into in the story about an increase in the budget, but it's a small increase. There was some you talked about some line item vetoes from Governor Pillen in the budget. Can you kind of tell me, maybe how this gets fixed? Obviously it's going to take some dollars.
Yeah, there's a sidebar story that might be linked. I'll have to check on that. That goes more in depth into the actual sort of legal processes that are happening, because there are some senators in the legislature who have been pushing to increase the fees. There's LB 358, I believe it's called, that wants to raise rates by 25%, which would be about a $6 million sort of cost in the budget. That bill did not get debated on the floor for this year, but it's on general file, so it might get brought up in the future. And I know that they've made efforts to put increases into the budget. And like you said, there was a 3% increase for the first fiscal year for the most recent budget. But then the second fiscal year, there was supposed to be another 2% increase, and that was vetoed on a line item veto by Governor Pillen. So rates will be held still.
And so I have that part of the story pulled up right here, and you do link to that story about state leaders trying unsuccessfully thus far to do more. So with that 3% increase, what does that mean? Does that we're at 39%? Is that going to boost it to 42%? I guess what does that 3% mean if we're not getting too far into the weeds here?
Yeah, not quite, because that's a 3% increase for all of Medicaid.
Okay,
So that
okay.
means that DHHS is going to allocate that money sort of how they see fit and how they need to. Some of it might come through to dentists, some of it might not.
Might go elsewhere. So Destiny, so again, I told you before we started this, we actually had an individual in here beforehand, and I was showing him the streaming studio and talking about our upcoming segment, and he said he had issues with this, so he was interested in the story. Are there resources, are there resources available to people to try and help this issue if they're having problems?
Yeah, lots of the colleges, like UNMC and Central Community College, do dental clinics that either take Medicaid or are very low cost for low income patients. Those can be a good option if you can get to Omaha and Lincoln. Sometimes there are rotating clinics that do go further out west. But sort of the biggest changes that are going to happen and help people is in January, the budget cap will be removed for how much an individual patient can have covered. So it used to be $750. That was how much you got for the year for dental, and that's it. That's going to go away now. So people are going to have the option to have more long-term care and more expensive procedures within 1 year. So that should help. And then also there will be a switch to 3 different managed care organizations, which are those insurance companies that are actually connecting with providers. And so, as I kind of got into in the story, the hope is that those 3 managed care organizations will be able to bring in more providers and better connect people.
And Destiny, I had told you this again before we started. I had no idea that this was an issue before we set up our segment for today. Do you think, again, as you covered this and put together this story, do you think it's an issue because people don't know about it, and if more people knew how much of a problem this was in Nebraska, that maybe we could push some movement through on this issue, whether it be the legislature or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I think dental care is not something that people immediately consider to be essential or incredibly impactful to a person. And I think it's sometimes hard to understand how much of a problem it is for people like John and Arlene Morris, who are so far away from the care that they can receive. So definitely the hope is that by giving their stories a platform here in Omaha and throughout the state, then that will help people sort of understand the scope of the problem, which I definitely didn't understand before I wrote it.
And the last time we had done this segment, I talked with Michael Wonder. He's with the Nebraska Community Foundation, and it was a really interesting story on an exchange program between folks in North Omaha and folks in southwestern Nebraska. And again, just kind of understanding people's lifestyles. And again, this is kind of in that same vein where, if you're in western Nebraska, it can be really, really hard to find a dentist, let alone a dentist, again, that accepts Medicaid and things like that. If you're in Lincoln or Omaha, again, it can be hard, but, there are so many available clinics here that eventually you're likely to find someone. So, again, just the understanding that there is an issue, we're all part of the same state. We all want to be fighting for the same team. So hopefully we can get something done on this issue. Destiny, is there anything else that we haven't talked about today that you want to make sure gets mentioned in today's segment?
Yeah, I would just say that dental care is really essential to people being able to have self-confidence, being able to get jobs and be productive and live their lives, and like even the most basic functions of eating are really essential for dental care. And for a lot of people, not receiving dental care can be an issue of racial injustice and poverty. And I think that it's a really big indicator of some overarching problems sort of in Nebraska and across the country.
Yeah, dental care, again, if you got a good smile, it can go a long way into, again, self-confidence and everything you just mentioned there. So, again, hopefully, again, by raising some awareness with this issue, hopefully we can get something done and kind of get those numbers up to a little bit of a better level. So, Destiny, thank you so much for jumping in and joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Any big weekend plans? We're going to do anything crazy this weekend?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to go swing dancing tonight.
Hey, there you go. That sounds like a good time. Well, again, thank you so much, Destiny. Again, it really is a great piece. Again, you can find this piece on the Flatwater Free Press's website, flatwaterfreepress.org. It's also on 1011now.com. So, again, thank you, Destiny. I hope you have a really nice Friday, okay?
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So that was Destiny Herbers with the Nebraska, the Flatwater Free Press. Again, thanks so much to her for joining us today. Again, as always, again, you can find this segment attached with the article on 1011now.com. And again, we'll be back next Friday with another segment with the Flatwater Free Press. So again, make sure you tune in for that. And again, as always, keep it tuned to 1011, both on air and online, for all of the latest news, weather, and sports. Hope everyone has